Hello citizens and welcome back. In today's video I would like to take a look at how mining, salvage and hauling missions affect the economy and whether they can ruin the game for players who like to seek out their fortune on their own. As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. And here's a shout out to our amazing patrons for their support of the channel and the Armory. With the release of salvage contracts and the upcoming implementation of cargo contracts and mining contracts, commerce and industry players now have two options for their gameplay. Either the sandbox experience, where they go out and find their own ore, salvage or trade routes, or the mission-based experience, where they pay for salvage or mining claims or take up cargo hauling contracts. The mission option is arguably much easier and could be what many players prefer. So we have to ask the important question of whether this ruins the gameplay for sandbox players or upsets the balance of the economy. First, let's take a look at the time factor. Players who decide to go looking for mining deposits, salvage or trade routes on their own will inevitably end up spending more time scouting and doing research rather than generating profit. On the other hand, they are more in control of their actions and are not dependent on contract locations, which in theory allows them to cover more ground and possibly find more valuable options. This, combined with how resource nodes are generated, serves as the main balancing tool to ensure that players are not making too much money with resource extraction. Trading is a bit of a special case here, because the dynamic economy should invalidate any excessively profitable routes before they can be exploited to an unfair degree. There is also a factor of safety. If you're looking for mineable deposits or salvageable wrecks yourself, you can find them in areas that are far away from known points of interest and decrease the chances of being ambushed. So how does mission-based content compare? By buying salvage or in the future mining contracts, you're essentially eliminating the time factor. You paid to be given the location of materials and now you don't have to go look for them. This replaces the time cost with a monetary cost, which should in theory limit income and that way prevent excessive profit. On the other hand, this breaks the balancing force of resource deposit being generated randomly and replaces it with the changing availability of the contracts and the actual value of the resources the contract pays for. In theory, you're also trading some amount of safety for the convenience, since a potential attacker can lurk in the most common areas where these missions appear and look for potential targets. Again, cargo hauling is a bit of a special case here, as we know there will be no such thing as trading contracts. Rather than that, we will have hauling contracts, where you will be asked to haul cargo contained in trades done by NPC traders. This cargo is already a part of the economy, so the availability of these missions will heavily depend on the general state of the economy. Also, cargo hauling contracts won't require the player to pay up front, most likely. At first glance, this seems pretty balanced, but I think this might not be the case. We can only look at salvage contracts for now, as they are the only commerce missions that are implemented. To promote testing, these contracts were made more available and sandbox salvage was reduced, so it's now quite difficult to find. I believe that CAG will eventually balance this to be more or less equal. But I wonder if that's enough. I would think that players doing contracts will be able to earn a lot more credits than players looking for salvage or ore on their own. Now, I think that the general idea is that the availability of resource extraction contracts will be heavily dependent on players scanning and delivering scan data to data brokers to be converted into contracts and sent out to other players. This could become a major component of exploration. There is, however, one major issue with salvage contracts at the moment. Once you pay for a salvage contract, your money is gone, regardless of whether you complete it or not. This is mostly a problem in cases where the server crashes, because that way you lose your salvage and your money and any potential reputation. Fortunately, there is a simple solution that has to be implemented before CAG can bring in more contracts. We already have an escrow service for refueling services that protects players against refueling being interrupted or the server crashing. Implementing this for resource contracts would be quite interesting and helpful to players, especially once you get to the higher level salvage contracts where you have to pay 50,000 credits. The only problem is based on what parameters would the escrow be paid out. For salvage contracts, it would be logical to make the escrow pay out as the player extracts salvage and be fully paid out once an equal value is extracted. But since the value of RMC might be dependent on the market, the calculation might not work. But it could also be based on the percentage of salvage extracted and fully pay out once some portion is completed. but this would be more complicated for mining because what is the value you escrow against? Also, once data running becomes a thing and players will be able to trade resource locations among themselves, will escrow be extended to that as well? These are complicated questions that we can't answer yet, not before more contracts are implemented. And with that being said, that's all for tonight. What do you think? Should CIG add escrow to salvage contracts? What should be the balance between contracts and sandbox gameplay? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.